You go and find a piece of clothing that looks really good on a model or on a mannequin, so you decide to go try it on, or you just simply add to cart if you're shopping online. Either way, when you finally try it for the first time, you realize that the clothing looks terrible on you. Well, why is that? The truth is, variations in appearance can have a huge effect on how clothes look on you, and there is a set of guidelines to help you choose clothing that enhances your features. After all, clothing plays a huge role in a person's expressed identity, so naturally, most people want to choose clothing that reflects their qualities and makes them look pleasing to the eye. With that in mind, I do want to remind you that these guidelines are just a suggestion. If you like a certain piece of clothing and they don't follow these guidelines, that's completely okay. The overall goal is to enjoy the clothes that you wear. But for a lot of people, including myself, we find that there's a lot of clothing that doesn't look good on us and we don't really understand why. So that's what these guidelines are for. Me personally, for a long time, I wasted so much money buying the wrong kinds of clothes that I would only end up wearing once because they just don't look good on me. But now I have this knowledge that allows me to really choose clothing that enhances my personal features. So today we're going to talk for each aspect of a person's physical appearance. I'm going to talk about different variations among them, and then I'm going to talk about how I personally take advantage of these features to choose the right kind of clothing. So first, let's look at upper versus lower body length, and then later we're going to be talking about body shapes, and finally we're going to be talking about skin undertones. So what is this upper-lower body proportions? So upper body is typically the top of your head to your waistline, and then lower body is the waistline down to the bottom of your feet. So the ideal proportions is typically equal upper body length and lower body length. So the variations come in is where some people, they might have a longer upper body length versus their lower. Other people will have a lower body proportion versus their upper. I am that example. Watch this. So I just bent down straight, and you can see that the tip of my head only reaches the middle of my calves. So therefore you can see that I am someone who has a longer lower body proportion. So how can we fix this with clothing? So one of the things I could do, since I have a lower lower body proportion, is I can wear clothing. I can wear tops that go over my waistline, and I can also wear bottoms that have a low waist. That can create the illusion that I have a lower waistline. Although personally I will still wear high-waisted just because of my personal preferences. So again, you don't have to take these guidelines too seriously. Another thing you can do is you can actually wear these what I call balloon pants. So a lot of people, they want to lengthen their lower body and they'll wear either straight or flare pants. For me, because I already have that longer lower body proportion, I wear these balloon shaped pants, and what that does is it also creates that shrinking effect of my lower body. So these are some good ways to help balance the upper versus lower body proportions. So now that we've looked at length, we can also look into width as well, because people have different body shapes, which is determined by their width of their shoulders, their waist, and then their hips. So the ideal body shapes are typically what we call rectangle and hourglass. Rectangle just means they have even shoulders, waist, and hip width. And then hourglass is the same idea, but they have maybe a smaller waist. The type of body shapes where some clothes can become ill-fitting could be the triangle, the inverted triangle, and the round shape. So the triangle shape is basically you have a wider lower body compared to your upper body. The inverted triangle is the same but inverted. And then your round shape is typically having even shoulders and hips, but then you have maybe a more fuller waist. So how can I fix that with clothes? So for me personally, I have a very wide upper body. So one thing I can do when I choose tops is I can look at their neckline. Certain necklines, like the square neckline, which I'm wearing, also the halter, and just a simple straight across neckline from like a tube top can actually create the illusion of smaller shoulders. The reason is that you'll see that the clothing to the tip of my shoulders, that space is smaller. So it kind of gives the illusion that there's a smaller set of shoulders. And so that's one of the ways that you can make your upper body look smaller. Another thing you can do is wear tops where the sleeves will flare out from the shoulder line. That also can create the illusion of a wider lower body compared to your upper body. So now we've looked at length and width when it comes to a person's proportions and how they can affect how clothes look on you. Finally, we're going to get into color. Color can become very complicated. Some people will talk about seasonal color palettes, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to be talking about skin undertones. So for some people, they might have a more warmer undertone that just means that they have a more orangish color in their skin. That would be me, for example. Other people, they have a more cooler undertone, so that means that they have a more reddish look. Typically, people who are paler or people who tend to blush easily might be more cooler in skin color. There's a third category. Some people, they just have really neutral undertone and they have an olive complexion as a result. So how can we choose clothing that complements our skin undertone? One of the most simplest things that you can do is to choose jewelry based on their color. Typically, we have either gold or silver jewelry. So for this example, I've worn these two color rings. So you can see that there's a gold one here and then there's a more silver one here. The silver one actually creates a really stark contrast between the ring itself and the rest of my skin tone. So what it does is it kind of distracts a person's attention away from your features because of the contrast that the silver has created. So instead, for me as a warmer tone person, if I wear the gold, it doesn't create that much of a contrast, and so it actually will bring out the rest of my features. Whereas if it was a cooler tone person, that silver would do the same effect. For olive people, they kind of need to experiment a little bit depending on if they do lean one way or not, and also depending on the rest of their clothes. So today we've discussed how these different aspects of a person's physical appearance can affect how clothing looks on them. And we've also talked about some ways to apply these rules to find the right kind of clothing. That includes your upper, lower body proportions, as well as body shapes and also skin undertones. That is why it's pretty important to look at these various physical features and how they affect how clothes look on you, and also to be able to use the proper guidelines to choose the right kind of clothing. After all, clothes are meant to fit you. So instead of sticking with clothing that's ill-fitting and stuff that you regret buying, you can try out some of these principles, and maybe you'll actually find clothes that complement your features and also makes you want to wear them. Thank you.